Welcome to Divine Expression, Deconditioning the Human Experience. I'm A Pariera, philosopher, guide, and a trans man becoming in real time. This podcast is a space where we question what we've been taught to believe about identity, worth, belonging, power, truth, and who we're allowed to be in this lifetime. No performance here, just honest reflection and lived experience. So let's begin. Why did I want to start this podcast again? Honestly, it was not planned, and I think that is the whole point. I've started 3 podcasts over the course of these last 5 years, and I've built different self-development and self-help communities. I've tried to really scale something much bigger than myself. But in scaling something much bigger than myself, just because I've launched all these things and been in different environments and hired different coaches over the years, doesn't mean it always felt clear, true, or good in my body. And if I'm being honest, and the beginning of this business and this mission-based work that I do that really is my soul's work, my life's work, I launched all of this, 5 years ago in 2021. And what I was actually chasing at the time, thinking back now, is when I had really decided and settled on a career path for myself, and that was after years of going back and forth and trying to figure out what I want to do. And it was something that was very complicated for me to see myself in one thing for the rest of my life. And so I went back and forth. I thought about doing therapy. I thought about doing occupational therapy. I thought about being a teacher. I thought about doing athletic medicine. All I knew is that I always wanted to do something that could help other people. I love making other people feel good. I love giving other people tools and perspectives to feel empowered and to reach our goals and to activate more potential within us. So at the time, I had really settled on being a physical therapist, and I was working at a physical therapy office in a clinic. And so not only was I going to school, I was also kind of job shadowing every day, kind of seeing what it would be like if I were to choose this career. And like I said, when I was going back and forth and just going through different careers and different options, one thing I noticed in every space, and including the physical therapy office that I was in, is these people would show up and help people, but these people weren't helping themselves behind scenes. And also, not only that, it was also there was a lack of almost passionate heart into it. And when I would meet people in that field or in different fields, it's that heart and passion was there, but it only lasted the first 2 to 3 years, and then it starts to fizzle away, because it's almost the systematic way of thinking and being kind of took over. Not that any of us are aware of these things, and I was definitely not aware of these things at the time, but what I chalked it up to be in the language back then was oh, this is just what life is about. You just pick a career, you put your head down, you make money, and you have fun on the weekends, and you get to have vacation, and that's just the way that it goes. So, and realizing that when I was deciding on a career at the time, I was sitting with questions in my alone time, is this really what life is all about? I have this deep calling for more. I know, deep down inside of me, I'm meant to change this world in some regard. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. It's just this feeling, this knowing that kind of doesn't really leave me alone. And so I sat with it, and I didn't push it away, and I didn't question it either. I just kind of got curious with it, and sitting with it for over, I don't know, it's probably a good year. Then my first mentor and coach came into my sphere, and I hired him, and it completely changed my life. And from there, I knew that this is exactly what I wanted to do, because he changed my life in such a transformational and dramatic way that I really saw myself in those shoes and helping other people in that way. And yeah, it was it was very clear as soon as I was introduced into what coaching really meant, because I didn't really know what it all was before. And so when I was introduced to what it all meant, when I hired my first coach, it was so clear in my body. I was just yep, this is what you're meant to do. Figure it out. That's the voice that was inside of me. And that voice inside of me at that time, yeah, I dropped out of school. I also was able to pick up my business pretty quickly because I hired another coach, a business mentor, who helped me understand how to build a coaching business at scale. But yeah, and because I was able to, quickly build, clients and income, I was also able to leave my 9 to 5 job, my therapist office job, within the first 3 months of my business and my mission-based work. So, in and considering, all of that and thinking about at the time, like, what was I actually chasing? I was chasing that more within. I was chasing that feeling that maybe I could change the world. Maybe I could figure this out. Maybe I'm here for a bigger purpose. And, that's what I really was chasing at the time. It wasn't clear. I didn't know what any of this, journey was going to look like. I didn't know what the next 10 steps was going to look like. I didn't know what my offer was going to look like. I didn't know anything. I just knew the what. The what was, I'm here for a bigger purpose. And the how kind of unrevealed itself, like they say, and that is true to my experience, because the how did start to come the more that I continued to take action towards that more within myself. However, even though this was coming from a pure place in my heart, a genuine place in my heart of like wanting to get out and change the world, I thought, going into the coaching industry, the spiritual industry, the self-help industry, I thought, like I was so, ignorant, I guess is the right word. I was ignorant to think that everybody had that purity that I had. I was ignorant to think that everybody had that deep desire and devotion that I had, because ego-based leadership and performance-based leadership also shows up in the coaching spaces, in the spiritual spaces, in the self-help spaces. And that's what I had to learn when I stepped into those spaces, because even though I was chasing that more, I was learning tactics and behaviors and ways of being to build this mission from ego, from urgency, from pressure, from proving it, and all those different places. So everybody that I was learning from at the time to build my business up from the ground and all of that, I was learning from people that weren't mission-based like myself. So there was almost like this constant pressure to prove myself. And I really started to notice it in my body the more that I stayed around coaches like that, and the more I stayed around environments and masterminds like that. I really started to notice in my body the tight chest, speaking really fast, over-explaining myself, constantly needing an answer outside of myself rather than just trusting myself. All of those things really started to show up the more I stayed in the space. And in the beginning, when I was in the space, you don't really notice those things because I was in such a new energetic environment, like getting out of my 9 to 5, getting out of my typical, routine, and like really starting full-time entrepreneurship and immersing myself in this brand new community that I had spent a lot of money on. Like I was just absorbing it all, and I didn't notice it at first, but over the course of months of staying there, I'd say I was there probably first 6 months of really building my business up before I decided to walk away from that specific group in the beginning. But after those 5 to 6 months, and then also, like I said, I was able to really, build my business up pretty quickly and leave my 9 to 5. Even though that happened, it was around month 4 months of being in that space. What happened is I stopped actually making sales, and every single consultation that I would show up for a client, what ended up happening is it just was a no. I got on the call again and again. I can't remember the exact number, but it was somewhere between 25 to 30 no's, and then I finally got my next yes. But it's that that specific experience, that really started to show up in my body. That's when I really started to question things, because it stopped working like at lightning speed like it was before. Like I didn't have to question things because it was just working. It was working so well. I ate it up, I made it work. But then, like I said, it stopped working. And when it stopped working, that's when I had the space to say, okay, what am I doing? Does this actually feel good? And what's going on? And do I want to keep myself in this space? And do I want to keep leading this way? That's when I started to really create that bodily awareness of maybe this isn't right. Maybe I don't actually want to build my business in the way that these people are building their business, because I want to change culture. I want to change a way of thinking. I want to really make a difference in the world in a positive way. And I just really wasn't seeing that same energy outside of me. So I had to make a really big decision for myself and walk away from, those groups, because performing starts to feel like another box. And especially as somebody that is trans, queer, ADHD, neurodivergent, like, I hate boxes. I hate performing. And that's what it felt like, was another one of those. I was like, oh no, I feel suffocated again. I feel like I can only act this way, and I can't act this way, and you have to do this to mean that, and da-da-da-da-da. And I was just like, no. But it's so easy, even though I'm sharing all of this, it's so easy to get like pulled into that ego-based leading, into that ego-based like action. Like it's just so easy to get pulled there. That's why it's a literal conscious choice to choose truth, to choose soul, to choose like the greatest good for all of us. Like it is an actual, not only just conscious choice, but it takes skill, right? It takes actual effort. Like it doesn't take any, this is how I explain it to my clients, like when we talk about like self-criticism versus self-compassion, and when I think about ego versus soul, like when we think about ego and self-criticism, that takes absolutely no skill. Like we just kind of like go there as human beings. But what does take skill and effort and accountability is to hold yourself to a higher standard of self-compassion and living from your soul with integrity. That takes skill, that takes effort. And so I choose that. Like I choose to put in the effort for that. And nobody asked me to. I just do, because I know what feels good in my body, and I know what doesn't feel good in my body. I know what is true, and I know what is not true in my body. And I choose at this point in my journey to trust those cues instead of override those cues. So before I really started to trust those cues, back then I just really started to notice what didn't feel clean in my body anymore, is really what started to happen. And I think what I really learned from all of that, like the lesson, like I was saying, I didn't really know in the beginning because I was like so in the action of it all, so in the behavioral soul and like the mental, that like the lesson was like the awareness always starts somatically. And I think that's very fascinating. Like awareness always starts energetically before you can actually like kind of understand what it all is and connect the dots. Just a lesson that I kind of picked up through that time of that experience. But now, where I am, so that whole thing lasted up until 2 years ago. So that was like the first 3 years of launching this mission in business. That was the first 3 years. Now, the next 2 years until now, I've been unlearning all of those ways of going about it, basically. So even though it's like I spent all of that money to unlearn all of these things now so that I could remind myself that's not how I want to lead. However, at the end of the day, I really do believe in divine experiences, divine timing, divine lessons, and I take all of that in so openly, and I'm so grateful for all of the experience it gave me. You have no idea. I truly mean that. But through the unlearning process of it all, and being willing to face the things and the lessons, what's really released in me majorly is feeling that my power is outside of me. I think that is the biggest thing for me. Like always trying to seek an answer outside of myself. Like, oh, what's the next coach? What's the next strategy? What's the next thing? Through unlearning and releasing these patterns, the answers aren't outside of us. The answers that we need to be our highest self and our most liberated self and lead the life that we were truly meant to lead on earth, all of those answers lie within ourselves. The only way to get to those answers in ourselves that I've learned is to have the right environments, the right people that mirror those exact qualities and things within you. If we don't have those right people or right environments outside of us to mirror that, then we don't get them reflected outside of us, if that makes sense. And that's a really big thing that I've had to release, is like trusting these voices outside of me, because even though I've trusted so many different voices outside of me, it doesn't mean that they've always felt right in my body. So it's learning to like trust my body's wisdom, trust my own knowing over people outside of me. But that doesn't mean it comes from this like arrogant place either. It means that I'm very open to learning. I love being not only, a teacher, but also a student. And I'm very big on that mindset and embodying that, like to be a constant beginner. But it's also being mindful that I can create energetic boundaries, which is I don't have to allow how other people think I should be doing things become the way that I think I should be doing things, and hold myself to a standard that doesn't align with my truth and who I am at the end of the day. So that's the biggest thing that I've seen released in me. But I think from, outsourcing my power, that being the biggest thing, there's been so many other like symptoms around that have also been healed, such as like people pleasing tendencies, needing to prove myself, or I guess also just like constant like I don't know what I would label that for myself, but either just like constant frustration with other people, or just like, oh, why can't people just get it? Just like, why can't you do your own inner work and just understand? Like, I feel like that is a huge part of me that I've been able to like soften and let go. And I think that was a huge piece that was inside of that container that I was in and picked up, and like just thought that I had to, yeah. It's like almost, actually, it's almost like a self-created pattern now that I think about it at this moment. It's like, because I felt I needed to prove myself. It's like almost that double standard of asking other people outside of me to prove themselves as well back. And so that has also been really released in that way. I don't really enjoy that proving energy anymore, so I don't really engage with it. Like, if I feel like I have to like prove my knowledge or skill set to somebody, then I'm just not going to do it, because I don't really need to do that. I would rather just, attract somebody that can just see that in me rather than need to prove that in me. So those are things that I've been able to release. What else? There's just been like so much releasing. Because it doesn't only just show up in like business either, or like the mission. It's like this behavior, this pattern shows up in all the areas of my life. I even think about like what's been released inside my marriage, or inside like the way that I parent as well. Like so much, like I don't need to prove myself to my wife and my kid all of the time. Like I am worthy as a partner, I'm worthy as a papa to my daughter, and like that is enough. And it's just so interesting how healing all of this has also impacted those areas. And I know I'm like not really giving you a whole lot of language for it, but at the same time, when you really get into the soul work, like sometimes it takes the language catching up to the soul growth that you've done. And that's something that I also share and explain to my clients, even though we can grow at these rapid paces, like our human self and mind is still catching up. So I feel like in that regard, my human self is honestly still kind of catching up to all of the patterns and behaviors that I've really released and unlearned over these last 2 years, because like it literally is so different in my body. I think the biggest thing that's coming to mind that I would like to mention is I used to always say, even when I was leading the LGBTQ mindset mentor business, I used to always say, like, I don't have anxiety, like I don't deal with anxiety. I don't even know what anxiety is. Like those are things that I actually like used to say. But then I came out as trans again, and I started unlearning all of these things that I just shared with you on this episode today. And I was like, oh my God. No wonder I used to say that I don't know anxiety. It's because I literally normalized the state of anxiety that I was living in 24/7. So I didn't realize that I had felt anxiety because I was literally living in the state of anxiety, if that makes sense. And I didn't realize that until I started to do, the unlearning thing, on the unlearning work and the nervous system regulation work. I started to, wow, just open my eyes to so much. But that is another big thing that I've really released, is like so much fight or flight, so much like anxious attachment to so many different things. And I think it's been a big reflection to the secure attachment that I've really been creating with myself as well. Like what I create in here also reflects and ripple effects out there. So yeah, I think a lot of that security that I've been building inside myself from this unlearning process is also really showing up in different ways. And, before, feeling the way that I do in my body now, like clear, aligned, clean, bright, light, hopeful, grateful, joy. Like all of that I feel in my body now, I didn't feel that before. I really didn't. I believe that I had to like build something that looked good instead of feel good. And that was the shift, is I felt like I did let go of trying to build something that looked good or looked impressive for other people, and I decided to start building something that felt true and good inside my soul, body, and humanity. And that's what this podcast is for. I don't need to prove anything. You don't need to prove anything. I just need to express. And that's what I want this podcast to be about. Self-expression. Divine expression. And what my nervous system feels like right now is slow, aware, present, regulated, grounded. I'm not really chasing anything anymore. I'm just trusting that everything's unfolding in the way that it was meant to, and not from like a bypassing or detachment place either. And I'm not really explaining myself anymore either. I'm just like, this is who I am. This is the journey that I've been on. And if you have a perception of it, then that's your perception of it. That's not mine. Like, this is my truth, and that's that. And that's really how clear, good, and grounded I feel in my nervous system right now, and continue to feel in my nervous system, because I continue to make the choices that regulate myself, that ground myself, and that make my body feel good. I no longer, use willpower to get by or to build something impressive. I don't override my body cues just to be seen as successful or determined. Yeah, I really am okay with who I am, the mission I'm on, and the life I'm leading. And that's a beautiful thought. It really is. We'll get into it in another episode, but yeah, that's the one thing I really promised myself when I detransitioned. I think it is, what's 9 years ago. Sometimes I have to remember, because like I'm online sharing my story all the time, so it changes every year, so I have to catch up. 9 years ago at this point, when I detransitioned, that's what I promised myself. I said, if anything, from this moment forward, if I'm going to detransition and do inner work and really find my soul self, like, I am making a commitment to myself. I'm going to love myself unconditionally and build a life that I'm proud of. Those were the two things that I really set out to do. And I did that. And it wasn't anything of what I expected. I'll tell you that. um, but let's end here because, every time I've built something before, I was still trying to prove something. I was still surviving through something. This time, I'm not. This podcast is not a brand move or a part of a strategy. This podcast is a self-trust move. This is a divine expression kind of move here. So welcome to the divine expression, deconditioning the human experience. I want you to think until I come back or when the next episode is, what does deconditioning mean to you? What does unlearning mean to you? What are we actually deconditioning at the end of the day? What are you deconditioning right now at this stage in your journey? Is it identity, worth, belonging, power, truth, who you're allowed to be, what you're allowed to do? Just some things to think about till then. Where in your life are you maybe building from proof instead of truth, like we talked about today? What doesn't feel clean in your body anymore that you know you need to let go of and start choosing something new for yourself that's more true? And what are you ready to start again, but maybe differently? Thank you for listening to Divine Expression today. If something in this conversation resonated with you, sit with it. Reflect on it. Let it move through you. And if you want to explore this work deeper, you can find my guides and resources in the show notes or on my Instagram at the Trans Philosopher. And if this episode expanded you in any kind of way, please share it with somebody who's ready to question what they've inherited as well. Until next time, stay honest, stay curious, and express what is true.